Stokely Carmichael speaking. I'm the only non-African American in the park, South Park in Watts. And he says the most important thing for black people to do is to define themselves for themselves and by themselves. And I wasn't black, so it didn't say anything to me. But then a few moments later, I had this epiphany, the proverbial light goes on. And I just took what he said and I took out black, and I put in at that time Oriental, and it said the same thing to me. If I didn't want to live up to the assumptions that other people had been making about me during my life, if I didn't want to live up to what the high school counselor forced me to take physics because I was Japanese and we're supposed to be good in math, if I didn't want to have to keep explaining to people that I speak English well, not good, if I didn't want to keep having to do that, I had to empower myself to define myself, for myself and by myself. And I wasn't the only one feeling this. A lot of people were feeling this at the same time because we're a part of the same history as Japanese Americans, and we're a part of the same broader American history that was unfolding in the 60s, as Lisa said. And there's no way you could stand on the sidelines. You got sucked into it one way or another, on one side or the other. So with me, it made me start looking for answers to the questions that I was having. One of the questions that would come up every once in a while was, what in the hell is this camp that everybody keeps talking about? You know, we for the longest time, my brothers and I assumed it was a summer camp. We only knew the Y camp and Grace Meadow. That's all we knew about camp. So what was this camp? And when I decided to start defining myself and thinking, there was nothing out there. There was no books. There was no community organizations other than the JCL and a few others. There was no museum, that's for sure. There was nothing. And so you had to start asking questions and finding information. For me, the African-American movement provided me a lot of framework to look at things. I mean, I read every book. Soul on Rise by Eldridge Cleaver. The autobiography of Malcolm X was critical. Man-Child in the Promised Land. The Invisible Man. You would go see plays by Leroy Jones, The Dutchman. And it was all black, and I wasn't black, but I grew up with some African Americans and whites and Mexicans and a lot of Japanese Americans, so I was pretty multicultural. And then all of this started evolving, and so out of that time, with that movement of H. Rap Brown and Black Power and all of these strong political speakers, the language of the day was what I pretty much had as my voice as well. And what empowered me was anger. I was getting mad. I was tired of being the good Japanese. I was tired of being the quiet one that sort of waited before I could take something to eat. I had to wait for everybody else to take it and then go, damn, I should have took it earlier because there's none left. This NGO thing's got problems. I knew it had problems. So all of this, I'm starting to go, why are they calling me a Jap? You know, and some of my friends would say, well, they call me a chink, so I wasn't offended, and I said, asshole, they can't tell the difference, so you better get offended. That was the kind of feeling, this anger, and it gave me a voice. I was very quiet. I was very quiet. I had public speaking at El Camino College and got a D. But then I got empowered by the sense of defining, and camp, for example, that's when Victor Shibata and I were going to a demonstration in Oceanside against the war. We're going to have a demonstration outside of Camp Pendleton. It just gives you an idea how radical we were. We were just going to throw down anywhere. We'd go right where the Marines were and have a demonstration. And we were sitting in Denny's coffee shop, I remember it, and at that time there had been the Poor People's March, and there was the Farm Workers March on Sacramento, and Victor and I kept saying, we gotta march somewhere. We gotta march somewhere. So where are we gonna march? And I don't know, where are we gonna march? How about those camps? How about those, yeah, let's march to a camp. So our first idea was then to march to camps. We had to find out where the closest camp was. And that's when we picked Manzanar. And of course, we couldn't march to Manzanar, it was too far. Then we thought, well, we'd drive to the end of the San Fernando Valley and walk from there. Then we found out that was too far. So Victor and I drove up there one time, and I tell this story often, I know Mitch knows it. But we went up there, and on 395, we've got some basic landmarks. It was about a little over a mile outside of Lone Pine. If you hit Independence, you went too far. Look for a big green building. It's the old auditorium, and it's on 395, like you're going to June Mountain to go fish. We knew that much. Driving down 395, out of Lone Pine, we saw the green building. Then quickly we ran into a road sign that said Manzanar Road. We stole that sign later on, but we ran into it. And we turned right and went east. And we went on to this area that had all of this asphalt that was sort of crisscrossing, and with our limited knowledge of camps, the only book at that time was Boswell's book called American Concentration Camps. Only book on the camps. Sei, I love the fact that people are talking about it very openly now. Sei didn't talk about it then, believe me, they did not talk about it then. So we're trying to figure this all out, and thank goodness later on we run into the Sue Embry's and Amy Uno's and Edison Uno's. Nisei's that started translating this stuff for us so we could figure it out. Went east, we had our imaginations running wild. Pickup truck in the distance starts coming toward us. We notice it, cloud of dust. It's getting closer, we notice it. We're still talking about the camps, and the barracks must have been here, and the asphalt must have been the road. And pickup truck pulls up on us. We see the guns in the gun rack and the guys with the cowboy hats, and they holler out the window, "What are you boys doing?" And nobody calls us a boy. We ain't boys, we're men. Well, okay, you may be, well, what are you boys looking for? We're looking for those damn camps that people like you put us in. That's what we're looking for. Then they started laughing, and that really pissed us off. They said, "You're looking for the concentrate?" Yeah, they didn't say concentrate. The camps that Japanese were put in? They say, "Yeah. Well, it's on the other side of 395. You go down the road." So we were on the wrong side, and then we went on the other side on their directions, going down this bumpy road, went over a cow gate, bumpy road. We're on the north end of the camp. We didn't understand this. Barbed wire, tumbleweeds all over the place, barely could manage the road. And then as we go over a little hump, and if you've ever been to a Badlands area, it's where it looks flat, but it's really not, and that's how you get lost. So anyway, that's how it is around Manzanar, as a lot of you know. We go over this little rise, and then there's this little white monument sticking up in the distance with the Sierra Nevada mountains in the background. I mean, how magnificent is that? Mount Whitney, snow on top, tumbleweed, upper desert, and this monument sticking up out of nowhere. Makes no sense at all. You get closer, you couldn't hardly tell because it was so weather beaten, but there was Japanese writing on it. Yeah, we figured we discovered something, and we did. So then we had the first Manzanar pilgrimage, and to continue the fact that we didn't know what we were doing, we did it in December. Yeah, exactly. It was the worst time. That in August would probably be the two worst times you'd want to go to Manzanar. But that was the first Manzanar.
If I can ask,
yes.
please jump from what you're talking about here now to your son.